The House will come to order. Members, today, go ahead and come on up. We are also going to have the Canyon City High School Band sing the national anthem, but before that, the Pledge of Allegiance will be by Margaret Frankie Rivka and Abraham Morginski, and they will lead us in the pledge.
Please join us in the pledge.
And now we will hear for the national anthem from Canyon City High School Band. And they are guests of Representatives Wilson and Ryer. Mr. Randall, please call the roll.
Representatives Arndt, Becker J. Excused. Becker K. Beckman. Benavides. Bridges. Buck. Buckner.
Excused.
Carver. Catlin. Coleman. Covarrubias.
Excused.
Danielson. Escar. Everett. Exum. Foot. Representative Foot.
Excused.
Garnett. Janal. Gray. Hamner. Hanson. Herod, excused. Putin. Humphrey. Jackson. Kennedy. Kraft Tharp. Landgraf. Lawrence. Lawrence.
Excused.
Lebsock. Lee. Leonard. Lewis, excused. Liston. Lontine. Lontine. Lundeen. McKean. McLaughlin. Melton. Michelson Janae. Neville. Pabone. Pedersen, excused. Rankin. Ransom. Ryer. Roberts. Rosenthal. Sane. Salazar. Sandridge. Sias. Singer. Thurlow. Valdez. Representative Foote is present. Van Winkle. Weissman. Willett. Williams.
All right, Marilyn, on your script, I'm going to go to this part next. Okay. Excused.
Wilson. Winter. Wist. Young. Young. Madam Speaker.
Here.
Becker J. Buckner. Covarrubias. Aaron. Lawrence. Lewis. Pedersen. And Williams.
With 57 present and 8 excused, we do have a quorum. Representative Valdez.
Good morning.
Good morning, Representative Valdez.
How are you doing today?
Doing well. How are you?
Excellent. Yo pido la lectura del diario de jueves 18 de enero de 2018. Sea dispensada y aprobada como Congreso por la Secretaria General. Madam Speaker, I move the reading of the Journal Thursday, January 18, 2018, be dispensed with and approved by as corrected by the Chief Clerk.
Thank you, Representative Valdez. You have heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed signify by saying no. All right, that motion passes. All right, we have a new member, Representative Sandridge. The Chief Clerk has received communications from the Secretary of State concerning the election by vacancy committee of Representative Shane Sandridge to fill the vacancy in House District 14 created by the resignation of Representative Dan Nordberg. If there is no objection, the documents will not be read at length as they will be printed in full in the Journal. Representative Sandridge was given the oath of office in the House chamber this morning at 8 a.m. Welcome to the Colorado House of Representatives, Representative Sandridge. And Representative Sandridge's name has been added to the roll call of the House. And we look forward to working with you. All right, Mr. Randall, let's go to appointments to committees. Mr. Randall, please read any changes in appointments to committees.
A letter from the Minority Leader. Please be advised that pursuant to House Rule 3.8, I am appointing Representative Shane Sandridge to serve on the House Business Affairs and Labor Committee and the House Finance Committee.
All right, thank you, Mr. Randall. Announcements and introductions. Representative Wilson. And Representative Breyer.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm not talking about junior livestock at this time. I'll get you later. But it's my honor and privilege today, along with Representative Breyer, to introduce the members of the Canyon City State Championship Marching Band. If you would please rise. I will give you a hint as to the quality of this band. The ones who played the national anthem are only a few selected instrumentalists from that band. Had you have heard the entire band, the chandelier would probably have dropped. They are an outstanding band, and having been an administrator in my career, I could always judge the quality of a band by how they played the national anthem because it is a tough one to play and sound good, and they sounded phenomenal today, didn't they?
I stood there with chills going all over me because it was just so moving. I was lucky enough when I was in high school to play the alto saxophone in a marching band. And that's a thrill, and that's something that you do in your high school careers. You never forget. And you judge the bands and all the parades and stuff because the lines aren't straight. You just do. You will the rest of your life, believe me. So I congratulate you. I think this is phenomenal, and thank you for coming and being with us this morning.
Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And at the risk of a fine, because I'm not sure how this works with staff members, but a big thank you to an alumni of the Marching Band of Canyon City and the one who organized all of this, right over there, Susan. Let's have a round of applause for Susan.
Well, thank you so much for Susan for your work to make sure the band was here, and thank you for joining us today. It was absolutely beautiful hearing the national anthem. Do you have time for one more song? If you like to, if you guys are up for it, we'd love to hear one more song from you this morning. We have a little bit of time, extra time. Okay, no worries. No pressure. With that, further announcements or introductions? Representative Landgraf.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, this is important. You're not listening. The 29th of January is going to be the first Veterans Caucus of this year. The topic is the role taxes play in keeping vets and families in Colorado. This is very important because we're going to follow this with a bill in finance that hopefully we can pass this year. We'll see. But I'd like you to know why we're running this bill. We'll have great speakers there. It's going to be across the street in SSB 603, and if you would please RSVP to Jerry by January 25th. Lunch will be provided. Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Further announcements and introductions. Representative Weissman and Representative Hansen.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, final reminder going on right now downstairs, research science poster session, capital investments, pun intended, NIST, NCAR, NOAA, NREL. What more could you ask for? Let's all go and get smarter.
Great. Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I second that reminder. Please take a chance before 12 today to stop by and see the very best and brightest in the state. Do incredible scientific research, and this is our chance to spend a few moments with those scientists, get a chance to see some of the great work they've been doing. Thanks a lot.
All right, thank you. Further announcements or introductions? Representative Bridges. And Representative Beckman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
So often as legislators, when we work on affordable housing issues, we talk to people, we build coalitions, we use our fingers and press buttons. But today, you have the opportunity to get a whole body investment in building affordable housing for Coloradans. This is Habitat for Humanity's largest build in their history here in Metro Denver. 355 folks are going to have owned affordable housing, and you can be a part of building that today. We have a lunch from 11:30 to 12:30. If you can't make it for the whole day, stop by for that. And then we've got a build from 12:30 to 4:30 today. It is why we are wearing our tool belts. Here we go.
Wait.
These are here we go. And we did both own these. These are not just props.
Yeah, mine's about 30 years old. So, Habitat for Humanity in Sheridan is building 78 townhomes. And the reason they're able to build the townhomes is because of some of the construction defect litigation legislation that we did last year, because they have the security to do that. And it's very important to understand that today we're going to be out there, it's kind of cold, but we're going to be working with the families that are going to be moving into these homes. Habitat for Humanity is very unique because it's not a handout, it's a hand up. Families have to have almost 400 hours of sweat equity to be able to move into these homes. They have to make down payments and they have to pay rent. It is a step up for people because they move into home ownership. It's a great program, and we would love to have you join us today. They're going to serve us lunch and have a little bit of a safety thing.
And even though it is the middle of January, Siri this morning told me that the high temp in Sheridan is going to be 64 degrees.
beautiful.
So come on out, build some homes.
All right, further announcements or introductions? Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I was asleep at the wheel there. I apologize. Okay, folks. Today is the day of the junior livestock sale. We have good news. We are whooping the Senate. We are well ahead of the Senate. However, Senator Sonnenberg told me that he was hiding those lazy boy recliners this morning to wake them up, and I understand that he is going to match anything that's donated this morning on the floor, and I have word that 2 other senators have committed to 500 and 400. So our lead may be at risk. So I want you to know, first of all, our assignables even got in on this, so they contributed to it. So a round of applause for our assignables. We are now collecting the $10 for your wearing jeans. 2 people decided maybe if they gave a $100 check, it would cover the $10. I said, I think that'll cover it. So if you feel that need, we can do that as well. Newly elected, appointed Representative Sandridge, you don't understand what we're doing, but we will buy a steer at the junior livestock sale.
With your help.
With your help, and knowing that today is your first day and it's the last day, my desk is right there, no pressure.
Nope, get in here.
Representative Art.
I wish we had a new member today. I'd apply the same pressure. But we did raise some money between yesterday and today, and we have a total now of $900.
So we are currently on this side at about $2,435. So need to put the pressure on that side. We need it today before we leave. Any money for your jean deal, we need that money because we'll turn that over to the senators and we will be at the National Livestock Sale tonight. And again, last year we spent 10 grand on it, and we figure we may only be right now at about, if they do what they said they were going to do, we're at about 6.5 maybe. So any help is appreciated.
That's right. Thanks, Jim.
All right, any further announcements or introductions this morning? Going once, going twice. We do have some resolutions this morning. Madam Majority Leader Becker and Minority Leader Neville.
Thank you, members, or thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I move House Resolution 18-1002.
Ms. Randall, please read the title before then.
House Resolution 1002 by Representatives Becker, Kane, and Neville P. concerning changes to House Rule 26 to prohibit the introduction of resolutions in the last 30 days of legislative session to delineate the what matters House resolutions may address.
All right, the resolution has been properly moved. Minority Leader Neville.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, you all know how I just love resolutions. This one actually puts some extra rules and puts us in line with a joint rule that we currently have that says any introductions of resolutions has to happen 30 days prior to the end of the session rather than 20 days. I think it's good policy and will kind of help tamp down on some of the resolutions and the time consuming, the time that they consume in this chamber. So I urge your yes vote on this.
All right, any further comments? Seeing none, the question before us is the passage of H.R. 1002. All of those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed signify by saying no. H.R. 1002 is passed. Madam, co-sponsors. We have co-sponsors on the last resolution. Does somebody want to make a motion on that? Does anybody want to make a motion on co-sponsors, or we could just open the machine? Madam Majority Leader Becker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the current roll call be added as co-sponsors to H.R. 1002.
Seeing no objection, the current roll call will be added as co-sponsors to H.R. 1002. Introduction of resolution. Mr. Randall, do you want to read the title of the next one?
House Resolution 1003 by Representatives Becker K. and Neville P. concerning a change to House Rule 35 to prohibit a member from giving notice of intention to move or reconsider during the last 3 days of a legislative session.
All right. Madam Majority Leader Becker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move House Resolution 18-1003.
All right. Has been properly moved. Minority Leader Neville.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, this resolution, if you remember back to last session when we had to move to reconsider and then vote no on the reconsideration of all these bills, and it was a rather confusing process in the last 3 days, because if the motion's not made and then it's made, then after session's done, the bills are in effect not in place. So it was just a really confusing process. This actually just eliminates that so that we don't have to vote on the bill and then switch our votes on however we voted on the reconsideration. Instead, we can just vote however we want to vote on the bill in the last 3 days.
All right. Madam Majority Leader Becker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm glad you all are so interested in these rule resolutions we're making. We're really not doing anything in any of these, so stop paying attention. Did that work? So this is, if you guys remember the last 3 days of session, every time we moved a bill, we said, I move to reconsider, and then we voted against it anyway. So we're just saying you can't even do that in the last 3 days of session. It was a silly thing, and we're just going to clean it up right here, right now. I ask for an aye vote.
Thank you very much. Members, the question before us is a passage of H.R. 1003. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed signify by saying no. H.R. 1003 passes. Okay, machine for co-sponsors. Mr. Randall, please open the machine. Hey, how are you? All right, Mr. Randall, please close the machine. All right, do we have any more rules resolutions? No? Okay, introduction of resolution.
House Resolution 1004 by Representatives Duran and Benavidez concerning recognition of the urgent and immediate need for Congress to pass a permanent legislative solution that supports policies and an immigration system that will positively impact Dreamers.
Madam Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move to suspend the rules for immediate consideration of House Resolution 18-1004.
Seeing no objection, the rules will be suspended. Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. I move H.R. 1004 and ask it be read at length.
Mr. Randall.
Whereas Dreamers, after the Federal DREAM Act, play a vital role in our national, state, and local economies And whereas in the United States there are more than 800,000 dreamers, with over 95% who are either working or in school, contributing to our communities and economy. And whereas there are 17,300 deferred action for childhood arrivals, DACA recipients in Colorado who came to the United States as children, and their futures have been at risk since DACA was rescinded in September of 2017. And whereas, according to several surveys, the majority of the American public overwhelmingly supports giving dreamers the chance to stay permanently in this country. And whereas Colorado risks an annual GDP loss of $856.9 million if dreamers are no longer guaranteed the right to work and study in the state. And whereas the Colorado House of Representatives believes that tax dollars should be used efficiently on sensible border security and not on deporting dreamers who have been living peacefully in our communities. And whereas families should be kept together because they are the basic unit of society and should not live in fear of being separated from their loved ones. And whereas the Colorado House of Representatives supports an immigration system and policies that encourage opportunities and positively impact our economy and recognizes that dreamers help to grow the economy. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the House of Representatives of the 71st General Assembly of the State of Colorado that members of the Colorado House of Representatives stand by the economic and cultural contributions that DACA recipients, as well as dreamers who are left out of the program, have made for the people of Colorado. That members of the Colorado House of Representatives recognize that the possibility of dreamers losing their work authorization and deportation protections would have devastating and far-reaching job loss consequences for all Americans. And that the members of the Colorado House of Representatives urge Colorado's congressional delegation to support efforts to immediately find a collaborative and rational approach to passing a permanent legislative solution that allows dreamers to secure legal status.
Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem and members. Thank you for your consideration of this resolution today. We want to send a strong message that we are standing with our dreamers. Dreamers like Marco, who was born in Mexico and was brought to Denver at the age of 3 by his parents who have worked hard for 2 decades to be able to provide for him, his 2 brothers, and his sister. Marco became the first person in his family to graduate from high school and with an international baccalaureate diploma, no less. But because he couldn't get a Social Security card, he couldn't get a job, he couldn't get a driver's license, he couldn't get college loans. And his first break came when generous individuals recognized his determination and his potential and agreed to pay his way through school. Then when Marco was already in college, President Obama announced the DACA program. The next year, we passed the asset bill in Colorado, and Marco's life changed. Thanks to DACA, he got a Social Security card and a driver's license. Thanks to Asset, he got financial aid and the in-state tuition rate at the University of Colorado. He was able to accept a paid position on the staff of the CU student government, and Mark graduated from the University of Colorado as student body president with a degree in finance and has since launched a promising career. He is fulfilling his potential as a contributor to our state's prosperity, and he is a textbook example of the American dream. Marco's story is not just about the importance of a quality education and the things that we can accomplish when we prioritize helping people access opportunities. His story is particularly relevant now because of the threat of what will happen in his life into the future. We need to protect our dreamers. Everything that Marco and 800,000 other dreamers have worked for could be taken away from them. Marco has no memory of his life before moving to Colorado. And under a repeal of DACA, he is subject to deportation to a country in which he would be a stranger. Marco and his older brother could be separated from his younger brother and sister, both of whom are U.S. citizens because they were born in Colorado. Tearing families apart is not the American way. Punishing people who have done nothing wrong is not what America stands for. I ask for your support of this resolution.
Representative Benavidez.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. Got that right. Colleagues, I am honored to sponsor this resolution, but I am deeply saddened that we have to bring this resolution before you today. I have listened to so many of you stand in this well and speak about how important, how dear each and every child in Colorado is to you, is to all of us. Well, the children in Colorado include children who were brought here by their parents, often as infants or toddlers. These are the children of DACA. These are the children that have been educated in our Colorado schools, and their friends are other Colorado children, maybe your children. I know they're my children's friends. They know no other country. These children deserve the right to continue to be a part of Colorado, to live their dreams, and to eventually raise their own children here. They are not pawns in some grand political game of chicken. They're human beings. They are children. They must not be bargaining chips. Immigrants coming to this country is not a new issue for me. In 1979, I first started to work with immigrants. I worked with a group of individuals and churches to help immigrants from El Salvador who had fled a civil war that was going on in their country. We started this group after I was contacted by a friend who worked for the Public Defender's Office and had gone to Gilliam Youth Facility, and a guard had told her about a 15-year-old boy who was brought in by the immigration authorities because back then we had no detention facilities for children. The guard knew this child didn't belong there. My friend and I paid the $500 to get him out. And first thing we did, we took him to lunch so we could make some calls and figure out what we were going to do. This boy could barely eat, and as he told us his story. He had been hit in the mouth with the butt of a rifle after death squads, and that's what they were referred to in El Salvador in the 80s and early 90s. They had killed his father, and to save his life, his mother had sent him alone to this country to find a relative he had never met. The relative supposedly lived in Wyoming. Well, we took him, my friend and I, to Our Lady of Guadalupe Church. And then Pastor, Father Marshall Gorley, he helped us. He helped this boy. He let them stay at the rectory until we could find a place for him to live. But he helped us create a network of church groups, lawyers, and volunteers to help this boy and to help others like him. This was going on in many places across this country. There were people stepping up to help immigrants because it was the right thing to do. Oh, this is personal to me because over the years I continue to work with several groups like Padres Unidos, Centro Humanitario de Trabajadores, and the Colorado Immigrant Rights Coalition. Working with these organizations, I gained a personal insight into the lives and stories of many families. I made many friends, and I understood that these are real people behind the rhetoric and the sausage making that happens in the halls of Congress and here in the business of government. DACA recipients have families. They're your neighbors. They serve you coffee in the mornings, and they even walk in this chamber on a daily basis, and you may not even know it. The laws that our Congress passes have real consequence. I want you to understand, as I do, that what is most important is that these are real families and real children. They're not statistics. This is a moral issue. Whatever side of the aisle that you sit, you know that we cannot negotiate on the backs of our children. If these are really all of our children, we cannot do this. We cannot quash their dreams and their hopes for something that they never did. I know that the current legislation being considered in Congress is an extension and that our government may close down. But there is one thing on it which is as important that deals with children, and that is to continue CHIP. That is important to all of us. And I think it is important, and we should do that because children should not be part of continuing the working of government. But DACA is about children too. And if we really believe that, then we need to say, continue DACA and get them out of this negotiation. This resolution before you urges our congressional delegation to pass DACA protections without conditions and to stand up for dreamers because it's the right thing to do. A majority of people in our country, no matter what their political affiliation is, supports DACA and supports CHIP. Colleagues, I ask you to please put politics aside, lead with your hearts, and to please support this resolution. Thank you.
Minority Leader Neville.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. Members, I'm disappointed. You might wonder why. Not 10 days ago in this chamber, we were told, and I quote by the Speaker, "Last year we proved that we don't just talk about not being like Washington, D.C. We proved by our actions here in Colorado we can work together to get things done." And yet, last night, I got a text informing me that we'd hear this resolution. It's rare that items unknown until 6 p.m. one night are heard in this chamber the next day. It's rare that we don't have the courtesy of considerable advance notice. Perhaps that's normal in Washington, but not here. It's a sad example of the partisanship that appears to have already crept into this session. I'm disappointed that there seems to be consistency between the Democrats in Washington who say, if you don't give us what we want on DACA and illegal immigrants, we'll shut down the government. In effect, my way or the highway. Speaking of highways, now I won't go there. I'm encouraged by one thing. It appears that our friends support President Trump's view that a deal should be worked out so that the 800-plus DACA recipients can be regularized. But I'm disappointed that the language of their resolution amounts to a bait and switch. The White House issued a statement saying the president looks forward to advancing legislation that secures the border, ends chain migration, cancels the visa lottery, and addresses the status of the DACA population in a responsible fashion. You can even read more colorful quotes on Twitter. In case you weren't aware, our president tweets. This resolution only addresses one of the issues of the entire immigration debate and does not address the issues that are required to actually solve the problem so we aren't in the same situation 10 years from now. I'm disappointed when I think about last year and the number of resolutions introduced that had very little to do with Colorado law, the things that we as Colorado legislators could do anything about, but were echoes of talking points from Washington, D.C. And so it is today. Here we are, talking about immigration, which, as everyone knows, is a federal issue. It was decided years ago when Attorney General Eric Holder sued the state of Arizona because they wanted to enforce immigration law. The Supreme Court told them in no certain terms, butt out, it's none of your business. But here we are, trying to butt in. As I look around the room today, I don't see any U.S. senators or representatives. I see us, who don't have any legal authority to do anything on the issue. Meanwhile, the cost of living goes up, Colorado becomes less affordable, people are stuck in traffic, yet we have to talk about a Washington problem because somebody lost an election in 2016. And so I rise today, Madam Speaker, disappointed. Not for the first time, but maybe by the grace of God, the last. Maybe we can get down to the people's business and work on legislation to improve our citizens' lives rather than saying vain things out loud that put smiles on the faces of political masters in Washington. As to the resolution, I oppose.
Representative Salazar.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. Coloradans, right over there. Right there. Right there. That's who this resolution is for. Right there. Want to sit and talk about how we're doing these resolutions based off of talking points from Washington, D.C.? Right there. There they are, Coloradans. Been here just as long as you. Right there. That's why we do this resolution, is because we are fighting for Coloradans. Whether undocumented or not, we are fighting for them. We're fighting for the integrity and the spirit of what made Colorado what it is. Maybe some of you don't know this, but Colorado was based and founded on principles of the immigrant. Take a look at Article 2, Section 27 of the Colorado Constitution. It was adopted the very day that the rest of the Constitution was adopted, on August 1st of 1876. Hope some of you know that that's when it was adopted, because on that day is when the state of Colorado honored immigrants, giving immigrants the right to acquire, inherit, possess, enjoy, and dispose of property, real and personal, as native-born citizens. People who are undocumented or not have those rights under our state. Let's not forget about that. It seems that people in 1876 are far more open-minded than some in 2017, and isn't that a very sorry statement? We are here today because there is something happening in Washington, which is nothing. Oh, and let's remind you that our Twitter president, he said, "I will sign whatever they bring to me." And on that day, those legislators came to an agreement. And said, "We struck a deal." They stood there hand in hand with each other. We struck a deal. And then he turned around and he said, "Nope, not gonna sign it. Not gonna sign it." Maybe he should spend more time listening to our congressional folks rather than tweeting or watching many hours of Fox News. We are here, and the Speaker has brought this resolution. Oh, and let me do the regular formality that I am stand in strong support of House Resolution 18-1004. Our Speaker brought this resolution, and Representative Benavides brought this resolution for Coloradans who are being affected right now, who are being used as political footballs right now. Kids who were brought here and who have been raised with your kids, who have gone to school with your kids. They brought this resolution for them. I remember just last week during the Martin Luther King resolution, people were saying, reach across the aisle. That's what we need to do. Reach across the aisle. This is reaching. Unshackle your vision. Lower that veil and realize that we are reaching out to you on behalf of our children, on behalf of our constituents' children, on behalf of your constituents' children. We are reaching out to you saying, let's get back to what made Colorado great. That pioneering immigration spirit, the ability to respect one another, the ability to understand that we don't demonize people by calling them illegal. I know some of you like to go back to the idea, well, that's what the federal government says. That's the language of the federal government. But if you want to take a look at the language or the history of language, there were things that were said that were written in law against African Americans, language that we don't use today. There was certain language used against Latinos and Asians that were written in law that we don't use today. And in fact, if those words are used, they're considered repugnant. It's an immorality to use that language. Whether you're sleeping on the house floor or not, it's an immorality. You want to do better as a chamber? Recognize that we are reaching out to you. And we have been. But we don't see you reaching back. If you can't even look at these books, if you can't even read the words here and understand what they mean, then I think I have nothing else to say. But I stand in strong support of this resolution.
Representative Michelson-Janae.
Good morning, members. I rise in support of H.R. 181004 for so many reasons. One of my first jobs in Colorado, I was the director of the Holocaust Awareness Institute at the University of Denver. And during that time, we worked with a lot of high schools in the Denver metro area, including West High School. And there was a teacher at West who every year raised money to take her students, once the Holocaust Museum opened, to see the Holocaust Museum in DC. And I remember her approaching me and saying, she wanted to take, she was raising money this one year instead of to DC to take them to Poland. And I remember her coming to me and saying, I have students who can't get passports. Do you think there's a way you can help me get them to Poland? And I didn't understand. I was in my 20s. I had just started my career. And she began to explain to me that they were not documented. And she wanted a way for them to be able to get to Poland because they felt a connection and an affinity with the Holocaust survivors who came here and who were not documented. And those who did come through our immigration system and those who did not. And it brought me very close to the story of my own family. And my ex-husband's great-grandfather escaped mandatory conscription in the Russian military. The Russian military recruited Jewish boys when they were 13 and 14 years old. A lot of the kids, to try to get out of the mandatory conscription, maimed themselves. They would cut off a finger, cut off a hand, cut off an arm. And my children's great-great-grandfather decided instead he was going to escape Russia. And he was told that he had to go to the middle of America and hide. And he came to Colorado and he hid. We don't know his last name anymore because he changed it. We think he was related to the Fishman family with whom he moved in. And he started a chicken farm on Colfax. We believe actually it was where Mile High Stadium is today. Representative Salazar talked about the language that was used to define members of the immigrant community. The language that was used and is still used today to talk about Jewish people is as repugnant. We have to look at our history to understand what our future is. This man, we think Ambus, we'll call him Great-Grandpa Ambus, gave birth to a boy who served in our military. He was a ham radio operator, and he was put on a ship to be able to intercept communications during the war, during World War II. He served with joy. He put the first radio network into a grocery store in Cincinnati. When they left Colorado, they went to Cincinnati. And he put the first radio system so that, clean up on aisle 10. He put that first system in the grocery store in Cincinnati. WAEF was his radio channel. Al, Ed, and Fred. All three of those boys served in World War II. And they continue to serve our community and build businesses and families and create what is America. I was on the faculty at Metro State University before the Dreamer Act. And I had students who were welcomed at Metro, and it was a conflict. Not for me, but it was something that Metro State had to stand up and say, all Colorado kids are welcome here. And when that Dreamer Act came around and my students could come out of hiding, that's when it became real. We're putting them back in hiding. When we say this is not an issue for Colorado, we are wrong. I am a firm and strong believer and supporter of the 10th Amendment. There are things we can do to protect our community, and it is our job to figure them out. What do they look like? What do they mean to us? Can we stand behind and say that we do support the children who are here and the families they have formed? When my family came here, 14 years old for great-grandpa Ambus, my grandmother came from Hungary. She was put on a train by herself at 14 years old. My great-grandfather was put on a boat and then a train, was put on a boat when he was also 15 years old. Those are kids without families coming to America to save their future. We must not forget the contributions that have been made by people who have come and colored up our country. That color is what we need. Thank you so much, Madam Speaker and Representative Benavides, my neighbor in Commerce City, where we have many dreamers, and in my community in Aurora, who I love deeply, and the fear that has gripped that community is real. Let's stop it together.
Representative Weissman.
Thank you. I'm only one, but I'm one. I cannot do everything, but I can do something. And I will not let what I cannot do interfere with what I can do. Edward Everett Hale. So the question of the DREAM Act and 800,000 people on DACA status is really a question about our entire country. It goes all the way to whether the lamp remains aloft beside the golden door, and if it does, how brightly it shines, and what how brightly it shines or how dimly it fails to shine says about who we are as a people and a country. But I'm really here because of what DACA status and the fights about it mean for my city, Aurora, which is the most diverse place in Colorado, which is one of the most diverse cities in the entire country. And I think that although this question bears down heavily on the entire country and every place in our state, it bears down with particular weight and force, as my colleague just said, on the city of Aurora. We speak over 130 languages. People from over 130 countries around the world call us home. Every story of escape from persecution or crime or lack of opportunity or starvation or desperation, and every attempt to escape that past and build a better future can be found in Aurora. We've heard recently about the action taken against the status of Salvadorans in the country. Aurora is about 6 or 7% of the population of the state, but 25% of the Salvadoran community in our state calls Aurora home, and I bet if you looked at any other nationality, you would find similar statistics. I want to share just one story of a young man that I met about a year ago. He was brought to Colorado from another country at a young age. Colorado is his home. He knows no other place. He is a student seeking education. He is laying plans to seek further education. He is thinking about law school. I've talked to him about law school. I've offered to help him apply to law school. He is involved in his community, and he is seeking out more ways to be involved in his community. In other words, he's a model citizen. He's what we should all want anybody to do and be and aspire to. In short, he is a dreamer. And you may notice that I have not called him by his name. And it's because in the current climate, I don't think that I should do so with the cameras rolling because I don't want to put him and his family in jeopardy. I know him by his name, I know a little bit of his story, and I wish I could share it with you so that you could too. And right now, I can't. And that is the real shame. And there are 800,000 more like him. That is why Congress needs to do something about this, and that is why it is appropriate that we do spend a bit of time urging them to do so. Thank you.
Representative Melton.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. 1 week ago, we passed the Martin Luther King Commemoration Resolution. 1 week ago, I heard members on both sides of the aisle talk about how we need to work together, how we need to respect one another's humanity, how we bleed the same color. 1 week ago, I asked, did his dream die? And what I'm seeing today with this resolution and with the attitude that I'm getting from one side of the aisle is that answer might be yes, regardless of that vote last week. Because this resolution is about humanity. It is about taking care of these children who are scared out of their minds, who came to this country for a better life, and without being able to have much of a say in it. I agree with the minority leader. I wish that this resolution wasn't necessary and that Washington would do their jobs. But it is our jobs to speak for our constituents and to speak for those kids that live within your districts. It is our jobs to show humanity. Think about what was said last week when we talked about civil rights. That didn't only mean for American-born citizens. Civil rights needs to be extended to all. And so I ask you to pause, to step out of your political juggernaut, or step out of your political position just for a moment and remember what we talked about last week. Because it's the same issue. The fight that we had in the 1960s with African Americans is the same fight that we're fighting right now for Dreamers. The ability to have humanity shown to them. Members, I urge, and I vote on this, I urge you to speak up for your members, or for your constituents. I urge for you to tell Washington to get their act together and do things the Colorado way. I ask for an aye vote.
Representative Rosenthal.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem, and I rise in very strong support for this House Resolution 1004. And now I do understand that this is sudden and that this resolution may even be, for some, inconvenient. Well, sometimes the truth is inconvenient. I hear there's even a movie about that called Inconvenient Truth. But this is an emergency. Emergency. This is an emergency for people who are in the DACA program and their families and our communities. This is an emergency for our state. This is an emergency for our country. And sometimes we have to do things in an emergency. And that's why we're doing this resolution. And I came down today because I heard some stories from some of the fellow members and jogged my memory as a teacher especially listening to Representative Benavides, I heard a similar story from one of my students. He told me a story since he was from El Salvador, coming to the north with his brother. He was maybe 15, his brother was younger, I don't recall his age. Coming north, you can imagine, about age 15, your brother's younger than you, trying to get north to see your mom, who lives in the United States. Somehow he made it all the way to the border, made it across the border. They were in the desert with a coyote. It was hot. It was a difficult trip. And the coyote kept saying, let's go, let's go, let's go. And I know this because he wrote, because as a teacher I teach English, and he wrote this in an assignment. And he wrote that he had never written this to anybody before. And he wrote how his brother died in his arms in the desert. You can imagine. He was 15, his brother died in his arms. And he got to his mother's house. First thing his mother said, "Where's your brother? Where's your brother?" You can imagine. So I wanted to tell that story on his behalf. These people just want to come to America for a better life. Thank you. And their kids, they wish the best for our country. They wish the best for themselves. They endure horrific sacrifice. And especially in the case of El Salvador, which, by the way, our country bears some responsibility for the chaos that is there historically, that there's no way they can go back. There's no way they can go back. They go back and they really stand a chance of getting killed because of the warfare, the gang warfare particularly, that's going on there. So thank you, members, for listening to this story and for understanding that when we talk about DACA, it's not just 4 letters. We're talking about children. Thank you.
Representative Esgar.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. Members, I rise in strong support of this resolution. Growing up in Pueblo, I had many friends in my life. I liked people a lot. And I never asked, or even thought to ask, "Are you documented?" They were my friends. In my early 30s, I started working for the Colorado Immigrant Rights Coalition. And I never realized how many amazing families live in my area. And how many amazing people in my community want to make sure that people are treated with humanity, that people are treated with love and kindness, and people that really are looking for that American dream are able to pursue that dream. There's an amazing woman in Pueblo. Her name is Sister Nancy Crafton. You don't even have to know her last name. You know who she is if you're from Pueblo. She spends her every single day tirelessly working with our migrant farm labor people, working with our undocumented friends, and especially working with our DACA students. She works every single day to try to raise money to help them with scholarships, to help get them through college, because she knows in their hearts all they want to be is Americans. They want to be here. That's all they know. Last interim, I had a chance to go back to CSU Pueblo where I had worked previously. And in my office, one of our student employees was a DACA student. I have never seen so much drive in a young woman. She had a young daughter. She was a single mother. She was putting herself through college with a dream to become a registered nurse because she just wanted to take care of people. The day she graduated was one of the most proudest moments I think I have felt in a long time. To watch her walk across that stage and receive her diploma, her degree, was amazing because I know her story. She shared her story with me about how she struggled her whole life to make sure that she could provide for her family. And now she had a daughter of her own that she's responsible for, and all she wanted to do was get that degree so she could take care of people and take care of her daughter. That's who we're talking about. That's why this resolution is pertinent. This isn't just Washington's business. This is our business in every single part of our districts. Whether you realize it or not, DACA students are in your district, doing the best they absolutely can to live the American dream and to take care of each other and their communities. I urge you to stand up and open your eyes in your communities and reach out and get to know people a little better. You might be surprised. Who's your neighbor? I stand in strong support and thank both the Speaker and Representative Benavides for bringing this, even if it was unexpected. Thank you.
Representative Singer.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem and members. I stand in support of this, and I echo some of the sentiments that the minority leader brought up because while you were texted at 6 o'clock at night, I saw this on my desk and first thing in the morning, and I looked, I go, okay, here we go. This will be interesting. And then, Rep. Salazar gets up to speak, and I go, well, that's going to be a minute. And I admit to doing something that we all do sometimes on the House floor, which is not always engage with whoever is speaking at the well. And it might have had to do with, instead of reading a book, looking at Facebook. And so I was going through my calendar events, seeing what I was going to do this weekend, and then the thing popped up on Sunday. This is my constituent, Venny. Venny is a dreamer. I met him long before the DREAM Act passed. And he was one of the people that actually changed my heart on this issue. And we talk about politics, 10 years ago, 12 years ago, this was, not a Democratic or Republican issue. You couldn't get Democrats to support immigration reform, and I was one of those Democrats that wasn't a big fan of where immigration reform was going, and I sort of held the same beliefs. Illegal, follow the law. Follow the law. That's why we have a law. Well, when the law doesn't work, when it's your neighbor, when it's someone like Venny, then what do? So let me tell you a little bit about him. So Venny came here as a kid. He has spina bifida. He is in a wheelchair. And he works at the YMCA after he graduated Skyline High School, taking care of kids, doing the same job I did not too long ago. The kids love him. We go to church together. We grieve together. We go to rallies together. And we talk about the issues that are facing us. And the issues that he faces are so greater than mine. And this is the thing that stuck in my head. This is why I'm meeting with Venny this weekend and going to a fundraiser. His spina bifida, which if you don't know is a bit of a nerve issue, it can affect your feeling in your legs, has gotten worse. And it's gotten to the point where the doctors have had to now amputate one of his legs. He doesn't get Medicaid because he's not here as a citizen. He still has DACA status, but he is not a citizen. He doesn't get a free ride for anything, even though he works and pays taxes and has stepped out of the shadows and agreed to use his name to further the cause of his friends and his neighbors and my friends and my neighbors. And now, thanks to UC Health, he's been able to at least be able to afford that surgery that is now life-saving surgery. And I think about this because how many times have we just sort of off the cuff said, oh, I give my right arm to do this, right? I give my right leg to do this. He has given his leg to be part of this country because he could probably go back to his native nation, probably find the medical treatment, but he loves this country. He is part of the thread of Longmont in a way that those kids wouldn't understand if he ever had to go back home. He's given his leg. And so I'm going to put out an invitation to all of you that when we get him through his surgery and his recovery and all of that, when he comes back, that you have an opportunity to meet with him, because it's people like him that changed my heart. And this is inconvenient. We have a joint technology committee hearing right after this in Senate Committee Room 352, Representative Thurlow and Representative Pabon. I was looking forward to getting right off the floor and doing that. But some things can't wait. It's too late for Venny's leg. It's too late. But it's not too late to do the right thing. This is a simple, short resolution that we can all read. And I'm going to be there on Sunday for Venny, and I hope that you can all be there for him when I bring him down here, so you can engage a little bit with one of my constituents who is willing to sacrifice his own limb to remain a part of our country, and that is why I stand in support of this resolution. Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem.
Representative Lebsack.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. Members, I'm uniquely qualified to talk about this resolution. Let me tell you why. Some of you know the reason why. I was married to a woman for over 10 years, and I shared much of my life with her. We're not married anymore, but we were married for over 10 years, and she first came to this country as an undocumented person, as a child. She ended up going back to Mexico, and her parents filed the papers, and she came back as a teenager, documented. She chose not to become a citizen. In fact, even today, she's still a Mexican citizen, but she has lived almost all of her life here. And so, of course, I shook the hands of some of the dreamers over there and said hello, and I'm going to support this resolution. But I want to caution this side of the aisle. Because I'm not caucusing with this side of the aisle this session, I can see things a heck of a lot clearer. It's really good to bring forward a resolution that advocates for people, and that advocates for the right thing to do. But the previous speaker just said, and I'll quote him, "It's not too late to do the right thing." The right thing to do would have been to reach out to me, because most of you know on this side of the aisle that my ex-wife, who I spent much of my adult life with, was an undocumented worker. But you know when I found about this resolution? Mr. Minority Leader, you got a heads up above me. I found out at 8:55 a.m. as I was reading the documents on my desk. Madam Speaker, I have a lot to contribute with this. In the 1920s, some of you may not be aware, and Madam Speaker Pro Tem, I'm sure I'm going to be allowed to say this because others told their story in this well today. the largest minority group in Colorado in the 1920s. I asked one of my fellow legislators on this side of the aisle, do you know who that was? And he didn't know. And it's Germans from Russia, right? And so Germans from Russia immigrated to this country. My great-grandfather came to this country. His name was Conrad. He came to this country in 1906 and immigrated to this country. And in the 1920s, the number one crop in Colorado were sugar beets. And you know who was picking those sugar beets in the 1920s? Germans from Russia. The largest minority group in Colorado in the 1920s are those folks and their descendants in that decade. A couple generations later, you know who became the largest minority group in Colorado? Mexican immigrants. So the same fields that my great-grandfather was working in, a couple generations later, immigrants from south of us came and were picking in those same fields. These are human beings. These are good people. Many have come at a very young age. They're dreamers. We need to support this resolution, but I want to caution folks, please. Let's be inclusive. Let's be inclusive on both sides of the aisle. It would have been much more respectful to allow this side of the aisle to read this resolution and contribute to it. I would have liked to contribute to it, but I didn't receive a copy either. And so I'm standing here for the dreamers, and I'm standing here asking this chamber to please put partisan politics aside and do the right thing. Share a good resolution with both sides of the aisle. I stand with the dreamers and ask for a yes vote.
Representative Coleman.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. So I hadn't intended to come up and speak today, and not because I don't think this is an important issue, but most of you know that I don't always come down to the well, even though I probably talk more than most people here in the chamber. But I got a quote from a young man who's in my House district, and so that's why I'm here. I'm here to read that quote. It says, "As a DACA student, what is going on hurts. But what hurts the most is we disclose all our family's information to the government, and that's what puts fear in my heart. That even though they claim ICE won't have access to that information, I expose my family, and that this is the reality for thousands of DACA students like myself. We have to go back to school with the fear of deportation again." And he's a student that lives in the House district, and he goes to CU Boulder. Listen, I know what the resolution says, and I'm in support of the resolution. And I think if you read the resolution and from a party perspective, you may have some disagreements and not be able to support it. That's understandable. But one of the things that I thought about wasn't just this young man's story, which prompted me to come down to the well this morning, but it was my mother. And I haven't had a chance to really share a lot about my mother and some of the health conditions she's been in. I was in a committee meeting yesterday, and Representative Kraftharp, I had to ask for permission to leave because hopefully, by the grace of God and medical resources and science, my mother will be able to continue to live. But my mother, for the past year and a half, has been, oh, no. I appreciate it. No, you're more than welcome, but please, no. Because we have a tendency in this chamber to guilt trip. And what guilt tripping does is it doesn't, I feel like, make you make the right decisions. I think when God pricks your heart with conviction, that's what helps you to make decisions. So if this so pricks your heart with conviction, but I'm not here to guilt trip you. She's been dealing with uterine cancer and seizures for 7 years. She was diagnosed with a brain tumor 3 weeks before my wife and I got married, and so She has been dealing with seizures, and eventually she had to have an emergency brain surgery about 4 years ago. She was able to recover from that. But we've been dealing with, for the past year and a half, a lot of complications, and I've been filling out paperwork that, as a young man, I didn't think I had to fill out so early. Cemetery and funeral home paperwork. So recently, she was intubated, and there's been a lot of procedures going on to save her life. And the doctor, and here goes the guilt tripping. The doctor just happens to be a man of color, a Latino man, and so I know where I stand on the resolution because of what I think it's about, what I know it's about. But I also thought about if this man and his family or people who he was related to were impacted by something like this, and he was able to save her life. God was able to do his magic, do his work a miracle to save her life. Would I be able to look at him and say, just as a human, not as a Democrat, this is an American, would I be able to say, hey, thanks for saving my mom's life, but the law says, or thanks for saving my mom's life, but this resolution says, thanks for saving my mom's life, but I got an election to win, and I don't want my constituents to feel a certain way. This is what pricks my heart. This is the conviction that makes me support this resolution. Not because my leadership tells me to, or because I'm a Democrat. It's because, yes, we may not agree on how we go about helping people, but the bottom line is people need help. And I had a chance to talk to Representative Jackson this morning, and she's been dealing with health complications that she wouldn't tell anybody because she doesn't want people to feel sorry for her either. But in that conversation, I been asked for a while, why did you run for office? We always have people ask us why we ran for office, and I forgot that quick. In the year that we've been down here, I've been elected, I forgot that. And the reason why I ran for office was because I know my heart. You know your heart. God knows your heart. And as a result of that, you're here because people are hurting and they need help. Period. That's it. That's why you're here. You didn't run for office because you said, I want to pass regulatory bills. You didn't run for office and give passionate speeches about something like that. You ran for office and gave passionate speeches about people in your House districts, Republican, Democrat, no matter what they are, who they are, because they were hurting. And maybe they feel like businesses shouldn't be taxed as much. Maybe they feel like people should have LGBT rights. Whatever that may be, there have got to be people in your House district that don't care about politics, but care about people who are hurting. Now, maybe you haven't had a chance to talk to those people, and maybe you feel like those people aren't going to be the ones that get you reelected. But I have a feeling that if those people's mother were in a hospital, if you were hurting, if somebody was hurting, and the only person that can help them was a person that could potentially be in trouble because of what's going on here locally and nationally, I have a feeling that we wouldn't even be having this conversation this morning. I do actually agree with Representative that maybe we should, and I don't know what happened in terms of putting this together. Maybe it wasn't a collective effort. So I actually agree with that. It should be a collective effort. But even if it was a collective effort, will we still have the same place in terms of whether or not we would support this? So again, thank you for allowing me to share, and I appreciate you. Thank you.
Representative Lontein.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem, and it's a hard act to follow, Representative Coleman, because he's such an eloquent speaker and from the heart. But I want to talk about how this is not about what's going on in Washington. This is about what's going on here in Colorado. We have 17,000 people who are in the DACA program here in Colorado. I would be willing to bet that there are a lot of those folks in every one of our districts. I know they're in mine. DPS has been at the forefront of hiring folks who are DACA participants. And these are people who are in our children's classrooms here in Denver. They are our teachers. We talk about how we have a teacher shortage here in Colorado, about how children who are minority, children of color, are falling through achievement gaps. And these are teachers that are uniquely qualified to reach those very kids. These are teachers who have shown through their own talent and grit that they can reach out to these children. If the DACA program ends, DPS will have no choice but to let those teachers go. Teachers that we need. I don't know if you guys saw this in the news several years ago, a trending story about a teacher in Southwest Denver who asked her kids, "What do I wish my teacher knew?" One of those children responded with, "I wish my teacher knew that my dad didn't live here anymore because he got deported to Mexico." Now, I don't know if this man was a DACA participant or not, but I say this because this is about families. A lot of these folks have blended families where some of their members are undocumented. Some of them are able to participate in the DACA program. And also within some of those families are children who are citizens of this country. And if their parents can no longer participate in the DACA program, are at risk for deportation, we are breaking families apart. And a lot of those families are in my district, but they're also in yours. And so I would ask that we remember this isn't about what's going on in Washington, except for the fact that it affects our constituents. And people are my constituents whether they're documented or not. They may not be able to vote for me, but I still have a responsibility to those folks. And so for those folks, I am here today, and I am in support of House Resolution 18-1004. And thank you, Madam Speaker and Representative Benavides, for bringing this forward.
Representative Pabon.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. There's been a lot of expression of displeasure and disappointment in this well this morning, and I'm disappointed too. Here's why I'm disappointed. On September 1st, 2017, we had a rally in the West Foyer, standing together, shoulder to shoulder, holding hands, standing up for our dreamers. And we were told that there would be resolution to this issue out of that action and out of the many actions that took place all over the country. We were told by the powers that be in Washington or wherever they may be that there would be an understanding, a recognition that this issue needed to be resolved, and that there would be compassion and understanding that would be taken into account when trying to solve this issue. And we were disappointed when it didn't happen. Then we were told by the powers that be that come December 8th, when Congress had to come up with a budget and figure out how to spend the taxpayers' monies, that there would be a resolution to this issue. And December 8th came and went, and we were disappointed because nothing happened. And here we are this week, here we are today, here we are in this moment, with no resolution but this one. This resolution that we are all standing for and in support of today. And I will support this resolution today. I will support this resolution tomorrow and the next day and the next day after that. And it will be inconvenient and it will take time, but it is time worth taking. This is not a conversation that just happened last night. This is not a conversation that just happened this week. It might have come together in this way at this time, but this is a conversation, folks, that have been going on in people's living rooms and at kitchen tables, maybe not yours, but at mine, and that people at people's kitchen tables that look like me, that share the same history, the same background, the same dreams and failures. And it has been going on for a long time. So yes, this came together this morning, but this has been going on. And if you want to participate, today's the day to start. And we can do this tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day until a resolution is passed, not here, but out there. Actually, out there. Washington, D.C. is that way. This is more than just a resolution. This is more than just a legal appeal or a practical appeal. This is an emotional appeal, a religious appeal, a spiritual appeal. And this appeal is bigger than the House of Representatives that we are in now. Our actions today, our vote today, begins the ripple of hope that can build into a giant wave of example and triumph, and a moment that shows to our constituents, our state, our country, and our world that we are still a beacon of light. This is our Ralph Carr moment. This is our Nelson Mandela moment. This is our Gandhi moment and our MLK moment, and all wrapped up into one. Because in those separate moments, there were many people that were represented in that conversation, whatever help or civil justice or social justice they needed. But in this case, in this particular case, it is only our children's lives that we are concerned about, our most vulnerable in our state. And I don't mean children literally, because many of those who are DACA eligible and DACA recipients are adults. I mean children as in children of God, which we all are. And if that's the case, then we must look beyond the politics and partisanship of this issue and use ourselves as instruments of God to protect our children. I rise in strong support of this resolution. Thank you, Representative Benavides and Speaker, for bringing this. If we need to bring this tomorrow or Sunday or Monday or every day until this is resolved, I support those efforts. Thank you.
Representative Exum.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem, and I too rise in support of this resolution and thank Madam Speaker and Representative Benavides. Do me a favor and close your eyes just for a moment. Just for a moment, just close your eyes. Open them back up. And imagine while your eyes were closed, your children were being ripped apart. Ripped apart from the family and thrown away. That's what's happening. And this is my simple prayer, that God will search our hearts and that we seek justice and mercy. And we have an opportunity here to put a permanent tourniquet on this open wound in our society. Thank you.
Representative Winter.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. Thank you, Madam Speaker and Representative Benavides, for bringing this. I come down not because of DC, but because the day I stopped fighting for people that live in my district that are being hurt, that is the day I should stop being elected. And we've talked a lot about who dreamers are and talked about how they want the American dream and they're responsible members of society. But I want to tell you about one particular one. I started my career in a homeless shelter. And I had a dreamer. She had 2 children that were citizens. And I couldn't find her a place to live because she didn't make 3 times the rent. She was being paid under the table at a local restaurant. And then she got offered a new job that would have allowed her to find an apartment, provide a roof for her children. But it wasn't on a bus route. So we've talked a lot about laws and when do we break laws or not break laws and what do dreamers do. And this mother came to me in tears because she didn't want to break the law. But to get a job to afford an apartment for her children meant she'd have to drive. And she couldn't legally drive because she wasn't a citizen. And so I sat with this mother and I couldn't tell her, I was 22 years old, a white girl from the suburbs, and I couldn't tell her the right thing to do. Go break the law and risk being deported and put your children at risk? Or give up that job that allows you to provide for your children? And because we didn't have laws at the time protecting her, she was in the shadows. That is what DACA did. Gave people the opportunity to come out of the shadows and actually follow the law, be able to drive to those jobs, and provide for their children. This is real. It's happening every day. And that's why I stand up in support of this resolution. Thank you.
Representative Lee.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem, and I rise in support of House Resolution 1004 and urge support for it. I am hesitant to follow the rhetorical eloquence of some of my colleagues, but I do want to make a plea for bipartisanship that I think is really important on this particular issue. And mine is going to be a somewhat different approach than talking about the humanitarian, the emotional, the family issues that have been raised previously. Mine is purely based upon economics and business. We have 17,300 dreamers in Colorado who are the best of the best. They have worked here, they have become educated here, they have technological skills. When we have an economy with a 2 or 3% unemployment rate, we need to have skilled, educated workers. What is going to hold back the economy of Colorado is a lack of skilled workers, and we have them here and we have them now. Why would we consider sending them home, sending them to, in many cases, a foreign country? We need these 17,000 workers to keep a Colorado economy going. So I urge support of this resolution to support the economy of Colorado and to support the businesses of Colorado. Thank you.
Representative Wist.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. Colleagues, I love and respect each of you. I truly do. Each of you. When we walk in these doors in the mornings, we are not Democrats or Republicans. We are brothers, sisters, sons, daughters, members of this community. So I want you to understand that I hear you. And I think every time I come to this well, or at least as much as I can, try to talk about us coming together as a body. and talking about the importance of bipartisanship. I also understand, and I looked at the Real Clear Politics average for this morning, the approval percentage for Congress is 15.7%. I get it. You're unhappy with the performance of our Congress. Many Americans share your view. Get in line. I have my own frustrations. I had my frustrations yesterday when Congress failed to take steps to rein in FISA, to talk about the importance of our Fourth Amendment and our constitutional rights. I have my concerns and frustrations with Congress's inability to address the high cost of health care in this country. I have frustration with Congress's inability to rein in the fourth branch of government. But let's remember that our job here is not to be congressional critics. We are the Colorado General Assembly. We have a limited time to do the work of this state. And I would ask all of you, as we proceed through this session, to think about the following 3 rules for resolutions. These are my rules. You can adopt them, you can reject them, but I'd ask that you consider these as we're voting on things like resolutions today. First of all, is the resolution germane to the duties and responsibilities of this body? Number 2, does it advance the interests of our state? And number 3, and most importantly, number 3, does it promote harmony and civility in this room? Members, I thank you for your time and attention.
Representative Benavides.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem. I know we've heard a lot and we've taken a lot of time this morning, but I agree completely with the last speaker. I know I'm not supposed to say your name. So that what we bring here has to be germane to this body. It has to promote the interests of our state. I will tell you, I was at a community meeting in my district last night, and this was a topic. This is germane to the interests and concerns of Colorado, and that makes it germane to this body. We all know, both sides of the aisle, we all know that our immigration system is broken. Over the years, there's been lots of proposals to change the immigration system, and many of those have been brought by Republicans. The last major change in 1986 was brought by President Ronald Reagan. President George Bush attempted to reach agreement on comprehensive immigration reform. So we all know this. And I ask you, each of you, and particularly my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, to recognize that we do have a broken immigration system. And I know it's not easy to not follow your caucus. Shoot, I don't do it all the time. And I get pushback. So I would ask you, particularly the women in your caucus, because I know you care about children. All of you that have children, you would not want this to happen to your child or the friends of your children. To all of you who are teachers or were teachers, these are your students. If there's any time to buck your caucus, if there's any time to recognize that our immigration system is broken, but we can fix this for children who did nothing wrong. This is the time that I plead with you. Please stand up and support this resolution. Thank you.
Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker Pro Tem and members. I wish an agreement had already come to fruition. And I wish that promises made would have been promises kept. But that's not the case. It is an emergency. It is a crisis. The fear that dreamers have in this country right now about what the trajectory of their life holds. I wish there was already a resolution to this issue, but there hasn't been. And right now, today, there is an opportunity to show through our actions that we are not like Washington, D.C., that we will work together to do the right thing and support this resolution, regardless of one's background. Some of my favorite moments in this chamber is when we show empathy and compassion for each other. Like the day that I talked about my cousin dying from alcohol or opioid abuse. Or when Representative Rosenthal talked about today on this resolution about a student who his brother died in his arms. When we have empathy and compassion for each other, when Representative Coleman talks about the challenges of his mother's health. This is not a partisan issue. This is not a Republican versus Democrat issue. This is about having empathy for our fellow humans, for our fellow being. And I'm asking that you join the Republicans and Democrats alike who have said they support the Dreamers. I'm asking that you join them today and vote in favor of this resolution, to have empathy and compassion for our Dreamers who know no other country than the United States of America. Members, I ask for you to vote for this resolution because we do bleed the same color. And we are all God's children. Thank you.
The motion before us is the adoption of House Resolution 1004. Is there any objection to taking a voice vote? Seeing none, all those opposed, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. No. The ayes have it. House Resolution 1004 is adopted. Mr. Randall, please open the machine for co-sponsors.
Co-sponsors. Please close the machine. All right, announcements and introductions. Representative Lawrence.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Members, I would just like to welcome, and I think they might be up there right now, the Sand Creek Elementary students, and we just want to welcome you to the House chamber, and there they are.
Welcome to the Colorado House of Representatives. Any further announcements or introductions? Going once. Go, Representative Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And first of all, I want to go on record as I am extremely proud to be the other James brother in this chamber, Representative Coleman. Second of all, folks, $3,510 we raised in this chamber, and the Senate's scrambling to match that amount. So thank you very much.
All right, further announcements or introductions? Representative Valdez.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. As my mentor would say, let it snow, and let's go play in the snow this weekend. Let's go out and ski also and snowboard and have some fun. And let's build a snowman.
Further announcements or introductions? Representative Singer.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Joint Technology Committee, we will see you at 11 a.m. in Senate Committee Room 352, 11 a.m.
All right, any further announcements or introductions? Seeing none. Madam Majority Leader Becker. Or sorry, do you guys want to do it together? Assistant Majority Leader Garnett.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I move that the House stand in recess until noon today.
Seeing no objection, the House will stand in recess until noon today.